Thanks, everyone. If I can just set this Craybob thing straight. If there's any, I was in a little town called West Wyalong, so I'm not from Goulburn, but I'm from West Wyalong, and out there we used to catch what we called Craybobs. They were yabbies. So if there's any, and they won't believe me, the blokes that I was on the tour with, if there's anyone here who used to catch Craybobs, could they come and see me afterwards, please? Look, I'm just going to, that was the purpose of the tour, and it's been covered by Patchy anyway, so I won't talk too much about that, but some observations first. These are Alan Warren observations. They definitely aren't the observations of Brisbane City Council, can I make that clear? And they may not even necessarily reflect the views of my fellow participants on the tour, but and Wayne's taken a few of my points, as has Jeff, but just to start off, number one, what it did show is what Patchy said. It doesn't have to actually be bus rapid transit. It doesn't have to be of the standard of the Brisbane busway. That has spoilt us a bit all around Australia, I think, when a politician does think of BRT and busways, they think of the Brisbane busway. It cost about $30 million per kilometre. I think in the States some of the stuff we saw cost $3 million for a mile. So there's much cheaper ways of doing it. And there's an emphasis on the rapid. I don't believe rapid is the right word. I think it's reliability that counts, and having dedicated busways helps that. I continually talk about frequent and reliable transport, and unfortunately the acronym, which I had to explain to the Americans when I spoke over there, of frequent and reliable transport, if you're a bit slow too. That's what it's about, just reliability. Next observation, it's about time the government stopped talking and started doing something. We heard about another discussion paper yesterday. BIC and the UITP and ARA through John Stanley and Co have developed plenty of information on which we can make decisions. It's pretty obvious what we need to do, and discussion papers, in my view, just slow us down and are a way of saving money in the longer term because it takes longer to implement anything. The other thing, we've got to stop pandering to cars. Over the last 2 months in Brisbane alone, and I don't know what it's like in other states, we've lost 2 T2 lanes, 2 HOV lanes, to cars. We were asked to comment in Brisbane City Council about the one that was controlled by council, and we've for about a year been saying no, 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 let the cars sit behind us. There's 60 people on that bus. You're going to hold up 10 cars sitting behind a bus. And not only did they want to, they've taken the lanes away, they wanted to indent the bus stop, and we know when cars are speeding past what that does to bus rapid transit or reliability. So it's about time we just took on the cars, and one of the observations I'll make from over there is that the Americans and the Canadians weren't afraid to take lanes off motor vehicles, and that's what we need to do. Peter McKenzie yesterday, or Monday I think it was, did raise a question about long-term planning. We definitely need a long-term plan, and the Americans and the Canadians do have them. At the moment in Brisbane, growth is being driven by the buses we order. We're pre-ordering buses, and we're just out to tender now for 90 a year. And we don't know how many of those are growth, how many are replacements, because we don't have a long-term strategy or network plan. And at the moment it's the buses we buy and others are buying which drive the network plan rather than vice versa, and it just doesn't make sense. That plan that we need has to be funded as well. It's pointless having a plan that isn't funded and changes year to year. We need that forward view so that we can order. And we're still finalising our 12-13 budget with TransLink in Brisbane. A few issues going on there with government, etc., but we don't know how many growth buses we've got, where we're putting in services. And just as an example, last October and virtually every October before, our new network package was about last year it was about 5 to 6 million and 20 to 25 buses. This year 23,000 and no buses. So we're losing the plot a little bit there, I think. And that funding, to do it, we've John's spoken about the petrol tax, and the Americans have the petrol tax. I also think that another way around it might be through GST. The GST decision to put GST on fares a number of years ago, while reducing the sales tax on cars from 25% to the GST of 10%, is one of the dumbest decisions for public transport I've ever seen. And the politician on the table didn't like me too much saying that the other night, but perhaps we could hypothecate the GST on bus fares to public transport, or a portion of it. And light rail is not necessarily the solution. It probably isn't. In my view, it's an expensive way of getting less people from A to B than what buses can do it. And the bus design is the other issue too. We need to be innovative about that. Virtually everywhere we went had 3 doors in all their artics, quick boarding, off bus purchase of tickets, and less seats as well. And I think they're 6 inches wider too, so it's amazing what a difference 6 inches can make. So look, I just thought I'd start off, for those who haven't been in Brisbane, here's a couple of slides of just the quality of the Brisbane busway. And that's our Eleanor Chanel Bridge. Because of that going to the university, we've increased patronage from 3,600 a day to 30,000 a day over that bus-only bridge with bikes and pedestrians. That's going under a hospital, so it's linked to the hospital, but no cars on there whatsoever. Just some different views. The infrastructure, the bus stops, and this is state infrastructure, I must say, other than the Eleanor Chanel Bridge, is high quality stations with lifts, and you walk over the top of the busway, you don't cross it at all. And this is where the bus goes through the golf course. Until Wayne Patch and Steve Lucas played there, we didn't need that lid over the top of it, but it's been put in since. So look, that's the Brisbane one in a nutshell. But this is my favourite part of the trip, when we were given this time-lapse video. This is in Toronto at their interchange, and I guess just compare it with the Brisbane stuff and with what your bus drivers do. Goes for a minute. It's amazing, isn't it, when you look at what they're doing there. Their focus on safety is a little bit different to ours, and we recently had the Northern Busway open in Brisbane, and our bus operators, bus drivers, had us in the commission the night before about not using it because there's 2 pedestrian crossings on the busway. And Al Geyer, my Chief Operating Officer, and I, when we talk to him now, we just say, toughen up, have a look at this. So look, we went through a lot of cities, so this is a bit of a slide fest, and I apologise. I'll get through reasonably quickly, but I might eat into that drinking time that Patchy was trying to get for you. But so I've got a lot of slides. I'll whip through them fairly quickly. But in Los Angeles, there were 3 sort of networks: the Metro Silver Line, and the Orange Line. The Silver Line was the major arterial in the mixed traffic, and had some BRT attributes, branded buses and stations, signal priority, and fewer stops. And they carried half of all the boardings in the network over there. And this is what it looked like. When we go through it, you'll see that virtually all of the busways over there, or bus priority ways, had artics like that with 3 doors on them, all looking a little light railish. And I know that in Brisbane our politicians would love a bus like that. So that looks like a light rail, unfortunately. The Silver Line began in 2009. It's 26.8 miles, one flat fare of $2.45 to go 46 kilometres, a bit different to Brizzy, and 70% patronage increase to $11,000 a day over a couple of years. And this just shows you the infrastructure there. It's a little bit not up to the standard of Brisbane, but it works really well. The one that we went out on a trip on was the Orange Line. It began back in 2005 and they've just added 4 more miles to it, and it's 18 miles now with 18 stops. They just pulled out a number of stops along the way. There's park and rides combined with it, bikeways right next to it, heaps of landscaping and prepaid all-door boarding, and it's 25,000 people boarding a day. And just to look at it, there's another one of their Arctics that are the 3 doors and look a bit like a train. You can see plenty of space there. Wherever we went over there, I was very jealous of their layover area. Our layover area in the city of Brisbane's just about gone, as is curb space. I love showing this one to our drivers too. This is one of the intersections. You can see the busway goes right down the middle of the road with cars on either side. Nice wide roads though, but that car's doing a left-hand turn, the equivalent of our right-hand turn, across the busway. The lights are reasonably complex. It took them a little while to get used to them. That's their bike station at the end of it. Most of the buses that we saw have bike racks on the front and were fairly well utilised. Then we went to Vegas and they have 61 foot, so 18 metre Arctics. It's a 12.5 mile corridor, 22 stations, and a reasonably broad headway of only 12 minutes and 20 minutes during the off-peak. Off-bus fares again. They had signal priority. The interesting thing was, and they have passenger counters as well, $1.75 one way, $4 all day. And you can see the patronage, the huge growth there. 44,000 in July 2004, 133 odd thousand in December 2004, up to 2.6 million. So just providing that growth and the bus priority. The downside of it is it's a fantastic bit of corridor and busway, but about the last 3 miles inbound are on normal roads, so it probably takes you 3 times as long to do the last 3 k's as the first 12. That's what their buses look like. Once again, fairly fancy. Bit of their infrastructure. Double-deckers, wherever we went, were making a bit of a comeback, but they weren't all like that. They have older buses too, an Arctic there with a bike on the front. And that's just looking down the road, so you're driving down the middle of a painted road with the cars on either side, and there's always some interference when you're turning. You know, cars have to go across buses and so forth, and you can see the complexity of the signs there. Washington, Jeff's already covered this, but 2.8% is dedicated to transit and $1.9 billion per year for the next 2 years spent on infrastructure and so forth, BRT. But I think John, my GST going to being hypothecated, I like using that word, it makes me sound like know what I'm talking about. Being hypothecated would actually produce more than 14 cents a litre, I think. I just took that one because we got bikes hire schemes in Sydney, and I had a bit of a dig at Jeff that the bike rack was full. And this was early in the morning. It was full because everyone fights in the morning to get their bike spot parked near work, whereas ours are full because there's no one from council here, is there? Because people aren't using them as much as they should. But we have to wear helmets in Australia, they don't. New York, really interesting. It's basically a subway city, and plenty of you have probably been there, with the buses filling the gaps that trains don't. But it really surprised me. Their subway carries 5.5 million people per day on the trains, but buses still carry 2.8 million per day, and they have 50% fare box recovery, and the remainder of it is funded by real estate tax, phone bills, a levy on phone bills and payroll tax. You can see they've got a lot of buses there, a Metrocard with a flat fare, 90% PT mode share in downtown New York, And in downtown New York, they were really pleased and proud. They've increased, by having some bus priority, their average speed by 28%, from 3.5 miles an hour to 4.5, which they were wrapped with, because evidently you can walk at 3.5 miles an hour, but you can't walk at 4.5 miles an hour. Look, this is just on a train, but I just took that to show the different in the seating configuration to what we've got, and you can fit a lot more people on standing up, obviously. You might wonder why I took this one. I took this because it's little things that can really make a difference too. This is a gutter on the busway, and what it shows, it's angled inwards, so that if a tyre does hit it, if a bus operator does run into it, you don't damage the tyres as much. Something really simple that could be done very easily everywhere. That's their ticket machines. You have to validate before you get on. It's only mag stripe, so it's not a smart card like we've got, but it works. And this is their bus priority. They've painted the lane down there, and you can see it goes straight ahead. Those buses you can see are just tourist buses, so the buses on the busway go down that coloured bit, and on the inside there you can see the inside lane past the bus stop is where cars park. So the cars still share the road. When they have to park, they have to come across the busway and back out of the busway again. And once again it works, and this is just the approach to it, where it's built out so that the cars park inside and have to move out into the left lane. Cleveland. This is probably the best example I've seen of economic development, urban development and transport development working hand in hand. A fantastic result. They've got a thing called the Silver Line, which is actually now called the Health Line. They reduced 108 stops to 36, and they have 3 different bus stop configurations, and I'll show you one of the buses in a minute. They have doors on both sides of the bus, so that it can stop either in the centre of the road or on the curb. Works really well. They use hybrid electrics at a cost of $920K each, which is a premium of $250,000. And like everywhere we spoke to, the running hybrids, virtually every one of them said it's more about perception than saving money and cost effectiveness, and the politicians love them. They got hospital sponsorship for this. The corridor that they're doing has got a whole lot of hospitals on it that specialise in different procedures, and so people come from all over the world there. And they've got a 25-year naming right from the hospitals. And while we were there, they call it the rebirth of Euclid Avenue where it goes. They've got all these old buildings that were along there. They've been gutted and turned into residential units. Up the top and down the bottom is commercial, and those residential units right along the corridor as they're developing them were 90% sold off the plan. And the Cleveland Gazette, or whatever the paper is there, they came along and said, you'd promised $2.5 billion development along the corridor, we want to go and just check it out and see how accurate you are. And they came back to them and said, you're wrong, you know, it's not $2.5 billion development, it's $4.3 billion. So it exceeded all their expectations, and it just shows what you can do with a good transport corridor. This is just their little round the town loop, and it's got on the front Smile and you get it for free. That's inside it. But this is their busway, so it's by the curb there, part of it. That's one of their buses with the doors on both sides. And you can see there that to do a left-hand turn, the cars have to turn across the front of it. Just a timetable, not a great deal of real-time passenger information. They have little jockey wheels. They come in at about 100 miles an hour and just go bang into the gutter and don't hurt anything, except our ears. Oh, there's some esteemed gentlemen standing there. Sorry, not gentlemen. And the landscaping was really fantastic down this corridor as well. That's just looking out the front of it. And you can see cars on the other side as well, on both sides of the road. Hospitals. And this is Doug, our driver. You can see he had a pretty flash uniform on, and he had a sign up there saying, Doug, I'm your driver. And I spoke to the people there. I said, did you have much trouble getting them to put up their names? And they said, oh yeah, hell of a problem, because we have tried it. Doug loved it. And I said, do they all have that? And he said, oh yeah, we all put our names up. The next 3 buses we got on, none of them had a name up there. So some things never change. Just Ottawa. The Brisbane busway was actually modelled on Ottawa, and it's the most extensive of the networks we looked at. It's the only city we visited that was planning further light rail. They were extending the 3-station, I think it was, light rail that they had there already. As Steve Lucas pointed out to me, they were extending it from nowhere to somewhere else nowhere. But it did have a bit of patronage on it. Plenty of layover areas in Ottawa, simple signage, grade separation in some places, but they also shared roads. Lengthy journeys, a lot of green space over there, and so a long way between stops, and 700 million development in the last 13 years along the corridor. I'll just flick through these. That shows the spaciousness of their busway stations. Just queuing up to get on. And here's more that just shows some of their space there to pull up buses and so forth. That's their real-time passenger information. Very simple, just the routes that go through there. If you've got the high enough frequency and reliability, it doesn't really matter. And that's part of the busway on the side of the road. And the beauty of that is when it's really choked up, it is so obvious to everyone in the car that the bus is going past them. More layover area. That's linked into a shopping centre there, so underground. And this is the one we're standing on, the light rail station there, and the busway station's just down the bottom. And that's their light rail train, so you know it looks very similar actually to some of their buses. I just took this one. This is the Quarter Century Club. Anyone who worked in the depot there for 25 years or for the company got their name on that board. I thought it was a fantastic idea and was bringing it back to Brisbane. I went over and had a look at it. The last time it was updated was 2002, so I guess it's a good lesson that you've got to keep things up to date. They park the buses under cover because of the cold. The ones they can't park under cover, and that's inside, the ones they can't park under cover, they plug into power points to keep them going, and if they've got too many buses for that, they just leave them running overnight so they don't freeze up. I got this one because all my private sector colleagues ribbed me about us having gyms in our depots. So cop that, boys, they've got them. Their network control centre, and there was a police officer in there as well. Oh, sorry, I just took that one. That's the different sections in their coordination centre. They've each got a fridge. If you put your food in the wrong fridge, you get shot. And the final place we went to was Toronto. No dedicated funding stream there. They run a Zoom, which is very similar to our Buzz high frequency. That's one of Brampton Transit runs that. They've had 23% growth in the corridor in 18 months. The one advantage most of the cities had, they're all fairly flat actually, so they could use the Arctics with fairly low floors. They had another mob called Viva. The 60s and 70s developments have helped them in the growth, the same as the old ones had in Cleveland, in that they could convert them into high-density residential buildings very easily. A bit different to here. And their policy document though, and this is their long-term policy document, the big move, has 100 actions for all models, all modes, sorry, plus freight. And what they stated is light rail is focused on corridor investment and BRT is focused on moving people. Their investment strategy is $2 billion per annum for 25 years. And the cost of fare, I love this quote, being a Mr. Frequency myself, the cost of the fare is not the greatest driver of patronage, frequency is. And the average fare is $6, but it is 35 kilometres, up to 35, and their cost recovery is 75%, huge. But I might add, Toronto, it surprised me, it's 6 million people, or 8, how many million? 8 million, 6 million? A lot of bloody people anyway. And the car is not their enemy. That's what they state. It carries the people in the suburbs to our buses, and they have 64,000 parking spaces along the corridor, and 65% of their customers arrive by car. Once again, though, they've got the advantage of a lot of green space that they convert, and then that becomes a bit of a coffee shop hub and that sort of stuff. That's the Zoom bus, very similar to the others. This is inside their bus storage area and workshop or garage. I took this one because this is us walking across the floor. If we did that in Brisbane, I would have been chipped by about 103 bus operators, bus drivers by now, because of walking out without safety vests or shoes on. And this one's Mr. Patch. He pointed out to me this shredded paper. He reckoned that was their workplace health and safety manual. That's just a pay. They do collect cash, so they did have a pay-in area with a person behind glass. Just another gym, boys. Bit of room on the buses. That's where the 6 inches or so does make a bit of difference. This is inside one of their interchanges. They actually have a bike shop in there, a shop where they do repairs and so forth, as well as storing them. And this is the final slide. So that's just where the cars have to turn across it. The buses are still going straight ahead where that diamond is, but the cars have got to turn right to get off there. So that's all. Thank you very much.